Rank 1, the applicant. You're 26, atmospheric science degree, 18 months in Greenland, a tolerance for cold and isolation your therapist once called either an asset or a symptom. You apply through what looks like a standard government science program. The application is 40 pages long and asks about everything: your politics, your relationships, your online activity going back a decade. 3 weeks later, a call from an unknown number. A man with a flat Midwestern accent tells you to report to an address in Alexandria, Virginia on Thursday morning and to tell nobody where you're going. The address is a beige building with no signage. A woman takes your phone at the door. She walks you to a windowless room. She offers you coffee. You accept. It is surprisingly good. This detail will seem absurd to you later, but you will always remember the coffee. Rank 2. The evaluation takes 3 days, not 3 hours, 3 full days. Rotating evaluators approaching the same questions from 17 different angles. They put you in a sensory deprivation chamber for 4 hours. They wake you at 3 a.m. for a surprise interview. They ask about your father in session 3 and again in session 11 and compare your answers. You understand you are not being screened, you are being mapped. On the final day, a man who hasn't appeared before slides a document across the table. He says, "Sign here if you want to continue." He says you can walk out right now with no consequences. You pick up the pen. Of course you do. You are exactly the kind of person who picks up the pen. Rank 3. The base is real. Located 340 kilometers from the geographic South Pole, well beyond any publicly acknowledged station. Funded through a classified budget line that appears in no congressional record. Staffed year-round by between 40 and 80 personnel. The research involves things described to you in a specific sequence designed to make each revelation feel like a logical extension of the last. Atmospheric anomalies, subglacial geological formations that don't match any known model. Signal patterns detected beneath the ice in 1962 that have never been explained and have never stopped. You ask if the signals are natural. The man pauses in a way that is itself an answer. He says the current working assumption is geological. You ask what the non-current assumption is. He almost smiles. He says that is why we need people like you. Rank 4. The new arrival. The base is entirely underground. What exists on the surface looks like a standard monitoring outpost. Below, carved into rock that hasn't seen daylight since before humans existed, is a facility the size of a small town. Corridors of the ice-gray stone. Artificial lighting on a programmed day-night cycle because without it, people stop sleeping correctly within 2 weeks. A cafeteria, laboratories, a gym that smells like every other gym on Earth. Your room is the size of a large closet. The previous occupant left a note on the desk. It says, "The coffee on level 3 is better than level 2. And it says, "Do not think about what is below level 5 until you have been here at least 3 months. You ask your orientation guide what is on level 5. She says you will be briefed when you are ready. You ask how they know when you're ready. She says they watch. You look at the ceiling. You count 2 cameras. There are 4. Rank 5. The researcher. Your official job is atmospheric data collection. The data is genuinely extraordinary. Magnetosphere fluctuations above this location that follow no solar pattern, no seasonal pattern, nothing in the existing literature. A career-defining discovery if you were allowed to publish it. You are not. You have a colleague, a Norwegian geophysicist named Eric, who has been here 3 years and talks about the anomalies with the energy of a man who has stopped trying to explain something and settled into simply experiencing it. He says 3 people were transferred out after a significant event in 2019. Transferred is the word everyone uses for the thing that happens when someone sees something they shouldn't. You ask where transferred people go. He drinks his coffee. He says home, presumably. He doesn't sound like he believes this. Rank 6. The cleared. You're 29. 18 months became 3 years. You are cleared for level 4. The briefing happens in a room requiring 2 key cards and a biometric scan. Dr. Yun, the lead researcher, presents the data. The subglacial lake, 340 meters below the base, sealed from the surface for 15 million years. The robotic probe lowered into it in 2003. The images the probe sent back before its signal cut out after 40 minutes. The images are on screen for 90 seconds. 90 seconds is enough. You understand why the previous director retired suddenly in 2004 at age 52. You understand why the signals from below level 5 are not just being monitored. They are being answered. Nobody says that out loud. Everyone in the room knows it. That is what level 4 clearance means, not access to the information, access to the shared understanding of what the information means. Rank 7. The specialist, you're 31. You work on level 5 now. It looks like a laboratory. Most of the equipment is familiar. Some was designed here because no existing equipment was adequate and the problem could not be sent to an outside contractor. Your work involves the signals. They began in 1962 as intermittent pulses at an unnatural frequency. By 1995, they had become complex. The lead linguist, a man who hasn't left the base in 11 years, describes them as responsive. You ask, responsive to what? He says to us. He says we have been transmitting back since 1987. He says the response pattern changed measurably within 6 months of our first signal. You ask changed how? He says it organized. He goes back to his work. You put on your headphones. Below you, through 340 meters of rock and ancient ice, something is listening back. Rank 8. The lifer. You're 38. You stopped counting years sometime in the fourth one. Time works differently underground with no seasons and artificial light and a routine so total, it replaces the external world. Your family thinks you work for an oceanographic program in New Zealand. You call them once a week on monitored channels. You have become expert at speaking warmly and saying nothing. The base has lost 4 people in your time here, 2 to medical causes, 1 to an accident, 1 to something the official record calls a psychological episode, and that everyone on level 5 knows was something else. You do not discuss the 4th person. You have been here long enough to know which silences are load-bearing. Rank 9. The director. You're 51. The previous director was transferred out at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday after a disagreement with the Oversight Committee. You were the senior remaining staff member. You were given the directorship the way people are given bad news, quickly and without ceremony. Your Oversight Committee communicates via encrypted video from undisclosed locations. They control everything except Level 5. Level 5 operates under a protocol from 1987 giving the on-site director complete autonomy. You spent 3 years understanding why. You concluded it's because the people who wrote it in 1987 knew a moment would come that couldn't be made by committee. Too fast, too specific, requiring someone physically present who had spent years with the question. You are right. The moment comes on a Tuesday in July at 4 a.m. An alarm you have never heard sounds on level 5. You are there in 4 minutes. You make the call. You will spend the rest of your life not knowing if it was right. Rank 10. The secret. There is a folder in a facility in Maryland classified above the highest level most people with top clearance know exists. It contains 50 years of documentation, the atmospheric data, the probe images, the signal transcriptions, the incident reports, and a 1-page summary written in 2019 describing in plain language what the research has established. 7 paragraphs. The first 6 are scientific. The 7th contains a single conclusion, 11 words, stated without caveat. 11 words that reframe every assumption humanity has ever made about its own significance and its own solitude. The folder has been read by 6 people. 3 are still alive. One of them gave a talk at a small academic conference in Brussels in 2021. 12 people attended. She said the 11 words out loud, encoded in a metaphor, to 12 people who looked at their phones and their coffee cups and went home that evening and made dinner and went to sleep. Not knowing they had just witnessed the largest public disclosure in human history. The signals continue. Below the ice, in a lake that has never seen light, something has been waiting for a very specific answer. Whether we have given it one depends on who you ask. The people who know are not talking. They are 340 kilometers from the South Pole, underground, listening.